It was a Friday evening like any other, or so I thought. I had just gotten home from work, worn out from a week that seemed to drag on forever. All I wanted was a quiet night to myself, maybe crack open a beer, watch some mindless TV, and relax. My name is Jake, and I am in my mid-30s, the kind of guy who usually appreciates peace and quiet after a long day. I had no idea the night ahead would turn my world upside down. The first sign that things were about to change came from my stepmom, Emma. She had invited her old friend Sarah over for dinner. Emma was in her mid-50s, but you would not know it from the way she carried herself. She had this air of confidence, always looking put together and graceful. Sarah, her college friend, was in her late 50s too, but she was just as vibrant. They had not seen each other in a while, so they were looking forward to catching up, laughing about old times, and sharing a bottle of wine. I figured I would let them do their thing, stay out of the way, and just enjoy the background noise of their reminiscing. At about 7 p.m., they arrived, both of them in high spirits. I greeted them at the door, doing my best to be polite, but honestly, I was just waiting for the moment I could slip away to my own space. Emma looked stunning in a sleek black dress that hugged her figure, while Sarah wore a striking red blouse that made her stand out even more than I remembered. She had this energy about her, something carefree and playful. I had met Sarah a few times over the years, but tonight she seemed different, more lively, more something. I could not quite put my finger on it, but I felt it. Dinner went by in a blur. I listened to them chat about their college days, laughing at stories I had heard before. But this time, there was a new undercurrent in the air. The wine flowed freely, and I found myself enjoying their company more than I had expected. Maybe it was the wine loosening me up, or maybe it was the way Sarah kept glancing my way with a playful smile, but I was feeling the energy shift in the room. Around 9 p.m., the three of us were sitting in the living room. The atmosphere had grown relaxed, almost too comfortable. Emma and Sarah were seated close together on the couch, laughing and swapping stories. I had just gone to the kitchen to grab us another round of drinks when I overheard something that made me pause. "You know, Emma," Sarah said with a laugh in her voice, "Jake has really grown into quite the man. Handsome, too." Emma chuckled softly, but her tone was different, almost knowing. "Oh, come on, Sarah. He is just my stepson." The words were playful, but the way she said them felt loaded, as though there was more behind them than I had ever realized. I came back into the room, trying to ignore the comment, but Sarah's eyes sparkled as she caught me approaching. She smiled at me, a teasing smile that seemed to hold more than just friendliness. "Why do you not join us, Jake?" she said, patting the empty space on the couch between them. Her voice was light, almost too casual, but there was something in her tone that made my heart beat a little faster. I sat down, trying to play it cool, but the tension in the room was undeniable now. The conversation carried on, but there was a new undercurrent, flirtation, something I had never expected from Sarah. I tried to stay relaxed, but then her hand rested on my knee, her fingers lingering there just a bit too long. My pulse quickened. Emma noticed too, but instead of reacting, she just smiled at me with that same knowing look she had earlier. The casual banter between them carried on, but I was starting to feel a shift in the air. It was subtle at first, but it became impossible to ignore when Sarah leaned in a little closer, her lips brushing my ear as she whispered, "You know, Jake, there is something about you tonight, something very appealing." I swallowed hard, not quite sure how to respond. Before I could even think, Emma joined in, her hand resting on my other knee, her touch warm and deliberate. I glanced at her, expecting her to say something that would break the tension, but instead, she leaned in closer too, her lips grazing my cheek. The tension was thick, almost suffocating, and yet I found myself drawn in by it. Sarah smiled at me, and I could feel her fingers move ever so slightly up my leg. "We used to have so much fun back in the day, Emma and I," Sarah said with a wink, her voice low and teasing. "Isn't that right, Emma?" Emma laughed softly, her eyes never leaving mine. "Oh, yes," she said, her tone dripping with nostalgia and something more. We had some wild times. The flirtation between them was undeniable now, and I was caught in the middle of it, feeling both excited and a little lost. Emma's hand moved slightly, her fingers brushing my inner thigh, and I could feel a strange thrill shoot through me. Sarah was watching us closely, her smile widening, and before I knew it, her lips were on mine. The kiss was soft at first, testing, and when I responded, she deepened it, her tongue gently probing, teasing. Sarah's kiss caught me off guard, but I leaned into it, letting the moment take control. Her lips were soft, warm, and eager. As our kiss deepened, I could feel the heat between us rising. Emma, sitting just beside us, watched with a smile that held a mixture of amusement and something far more intimate. I could hardly believe what was happening. Sarah's fingers slowly sliding up my thigh, her lips working against mine with an intensity one hadn't expected. But the real shock came when I felt Emma's hand join in, resting gently on my neck, her fingers caressing the skin there in a way that sent shivers down my spine. Suddenly, Emma's lips were on mine, stealing a kiss before Sarah could react. Her kiss was softer, slower, but there was a deliberate hunger there. My heart raced as I shifted between them, Sarah's hands still moving over me while Emma took her time, savoring the moment. The two of them seemed to be working together, sharing a secret language that I wasn't part of, yet somehow at the center of. Their hands moved in unison, Sarah's touch more insistent, playful, while Emma's was deliberate, slow, making me ache for more. I could feel my pulse quicken, my skin tingling under their combined attention. Everything felt electric. Sarah's lips found my neck, trailing kisses down toward my collarbone, while Emma kept me anchored with her steady gaze and soft touches. The room was warm, and the tension between us thickened with every passing second. There was a fire growing inside me, burning hotter as they both closed in, their touches more daring. Emma's hand slid down my chest, her fingers playing over my skin in a way that made me tremble. She smiled, sensing my reaction, and leaned in again, this time kissing me with more urgency. Sarah, never one to be outdone, joined in, her hands now exploring with more confidence. She pulled away briefly, her lips curving into a teasing smile. "Looks like you're enjoying this, Jake," she whispered, her voice laced with seduction. "Why don't we take this somewhere more comfortable?" I didn't need to be asked twice. The three of us stood, and before I knew it, they were leading me toward the bedroom. My heart pounded in my chest as I followed them down the hallway, anticipation building with every step. The air between us was electric, and I could feel the pull of what was about to happen. In the bedroom, the soft glow of a bedside lamp bathed everything in a warm, amber light. Sarah was the first to make a move. She pushed me gently onto the bed, her hands quickly finding their way to my shirt, pulling it over my head with practiced ease. Emma was close behind, her hands already exploring my bare chest, her fingers tracing patterns that sent waves of pleasure through me. Sarah climbed on top of me, her eyes filled with mischief as she leaned down to kiss me again, this time harder, her hands gripping my arms as her body pressed against mine. Emma, still beside us, was watching closely, her own hands moving over my skin, teasing and taunting. The feeling of their combined touches was overwhelming, sending my senses into overdrive. As Sarah kissed me, her hands moved lower, slipping to the waistband of my pants, her fingers teasing me just enough to make my breath hitch. Emma's hands roamed my chest, her lips finding their way to my neck once more, kissing a line that made me shiver. I could hardly keep up with the intensity of it all. Sarah's lips on mine, her body pressed against me, and Emma's hands tracing every inch of my skin. The tension in the room was palpable, every touch charged with desire. Sarah sat up, a smirk playing on her lips as she glanced over at Emma. "Shall we?" she asked, her voice dripping with suggestion. Emma smiled, a slow, knowing smile, and nodded. Without a word, the two of them began to work together, undressing me with practiced ease. My breath came faster, heart hammering in my chest as their hands roamed freely over my body. There was something incredibly surreal about the whole situation, but I was caught in it, unable to resist the pull of their touch. I had never experienced anything like this before. Two women working in perfect harmony, their touches complementing each other in a way that drove me wild. Sarah's fingers slipped under my waistband, tugging my pants down while Emma kissed her way down my chest. The contrast between them, Sarah's more aggressive, teasing nature, and Emma's slower, more sensual approach was intoxicating. It felt like they knew exactly how to play off each other, both of them pushing me to the edge without ever saying a word. As my clothes were discarded, I found myself lying there, completely at their mercy. The tension between us had reached its peak, and I could feel my body responding to their every touch. Sarah climbed back on top of me, her hands moving over my skin with a confidence that sent my mind spinning. Emma, always watching, leaned in to kiss me once more, her lips soft and warm, her touch steady and deliberate. The room felt impossibly warm now, every movement charged with heat and anticipation. Sarah leaned down to whisper in my ear, her breath hot against my skin. "Are you ready, Jake?" she asked, her voice low and sultry. I could barely manage a nod, my voice caught in my throat. The sensation of their combined attention was overwhelming, and I could feel myself teetering on the edge, completely caught up in the moment. Sarah's question lingered in the air, and I could barely nod, my breath shallow, anticipation buzzing under my skin. The room felt heavy with the weight of the moment. My heart pounded, and I had no idea what was coming next, but I was completely at their mercy, caught up in something I had never expected but could not resist. Sarah leaned down, her lips brushing my ear again. "You're in for a wild ride," she whispered with a teasing smirk before she kissed me hard. Her hands roamed over me confidently, exploring every inch with a mix of teasing and tenderness. It was like she knew exactly what to do, how to drive me crazy with every touch. Emma, on the other hand, was softer, more deliberate. Her fingers brushed over my chest and stomach as she kissed her way down, her lips barely grazing my skin, sending shivers through me. She was taking her time, savoring the moment, as if she was enjoying watching me unravel. And I was, completely. The two of them worked in sync, their movements flowing together seamlessly. Every touch felt calculated, intentional, and it made me dizzy with desire. Sarah's body pressed against mine, her hands finding their way lower, while Emma continued to explore me at a slower pace, her eyes never leaving mine, as if she was reading every reaction. "You like this, don't you, Jake?" Sarah teased, her lips curling into a smile as she pulled back slightly, her eyes locked on mine. "You've been waiting for something like this for a long time." I couldn't answer. I was too far gone, lost in the intensity of it all. My breath was ragged, my heart racing as Sarah and Emma took turns, each pushing me further than I thought possible. There was something incredibly intoxicating about the way they both seemed to know exactly what to do, like they had planned this from the very beginning. Emma kissed me again, this time deeper, her hand resting on my neck as she pulled me closer. There was something comforting in the way she moved, as if she was grounding me in the middle of all this chaos. Her kiss was slow, steady, while Sarah's hands continued their relentless exploration, sending jolts of pleasure through me. Sarah leaned in close, her lips brushing my ear again. "You're ours tonight, Jake," she whispered, her voice low and full of promise. "We're going to make sure you never forget it." Emma's hands slipped lower, and I could feel my pulse quicken, the heat between us building to an unbearable level. It was like they were working together to push me to the brink, and I was helpless to stop it. Every touch, every kiss, was driving me closer and closer to the edge. The room was filled with the sound of our breathing, the heat between us almost suffocating now. Emma's fingers trailed down my body, her touch soft but deliberate, while Sarah's hands gripped my hips, pulling me closer. The contrast between them was driving me wild. Emma's soft, sensual approach and Sarah's more aggressive, teasing nature blended together perfectly, leaving me completely at their mercy. "Jake," Emma whispered, her voice soft and warm as her lips brushed my jaw. "Just relax. Let us take care of you." I couldn't resist. There was no way to hold back, not with the two of them surrounding me, their hands and lips working in perfect harmony to push me further than I had ever been before. It was overwhelming, the way they seemed to anticipate my every need, their touches filling every inch of me with heat. Sarah shifted again, her body pressed against mine as she leaned in to kiss me hard, her lips demanding, her hands rougher now. The contrast between her intensity and Emma's slow, gentle touch was almost too much to handle. My mind was spinning, my body on fire, and I could feel the tension building inside me, threatening to spill over. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take any more, Emma leaned in, her breath hot against my ear as she whispered, "We're not done yet." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, and I could feel my entire body respond. There was no escape from the intensity of their attention, and I didn't want one. Sarah's fingers dug into my skin, pulling me closer, while Emma's lips moved lower, her touch more insistent now. I was on the edge, completely lost in the moment. The feeling of their combined attention was overwhelming, the heat between us almost unbearable. Every touch, every kiss, was pushing me closer and closer to the breaking point. I was holding on, but barely. Sarah's hand found mine, gripping it tightly as she smiled down at me, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "We've got you, Jake," she whispered, her voice full of confidence. "You're all ours." I was completely at their mercy, lost in the moment, and I couldn't help but give in to the intensity of their touch. The tension between us had reached its peak, and I could feel myself teetering on the edge, ready to fall. Emma's hands moved lower, her fingers brushing against me in a way that made my breath hitch. The sensation was almost too much to bear, and I could feel myself losing control. Sarah leaned down to kiss me again, her lips demanding and urgent, while Emma's hands worked their magic. It was all too much. The heat, the intensity, the overwhelming sensation of their combined attention. I could feel myself unraveling, every nerve in my body on fire, and I knew there was no turning back. Everything seemed to spiral out of control after that. Emma's touch became more deliberate, more insistent, and Sarah's teasing was relentless. My body was responding to both of them, each touch sending electric waves through me. The feeling of being caught between these two women, each with their own way of driving me wild, was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was intense, almost overwhelming, but in the best way possible. Sarah's lips were on my neck again, kissing and biting gently, as her hands worked their way over my skin with increasing confidence. Emma's fingers moved lower, exploring in a way that made me gasp, my mind fogging over as I lost myself completely to the moment. The room was hot, the air thick with the scent of us, and I could hardly keep up with the rhythm they were setting. The tension between us had reached a boiling point. There was no room for hesitation anymore, no turning back from the line we had already crossed. Emma pulled me closer, her body pressing against mine, her eyes gleaming with an intensity one hadn't seen before. Sarah smiled at her, a wicked grin playing on her lips as they seemed to share an unspoken understanding. Emma's hands roamed lower, sending a jolt of heat through me, while Sarah gripped my arm, her nails digging into my skin just enough to leave a mark. I had never felt so wanted, so utterly consumed by someone else's desire. It was thrilling, intoxicating, and I was helpless to resist. "Relax," Emma whispered softly, her lips brushing against my ear as she spoke. "Let go, Jake. We've got you." Her voice was like a soothing balm amidst the chaos, but at the same time, it only heightened the excitement coursing through me. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath shallow, and every inch of my skin felt alive under their touch. Sarah moved closer, her hand sliding down my torso as her lips found mine once more, kissing me deeply, hungrily. The feeling of being completely surrounded by them, both physically and emotionally, was overpowering. They were everywhere, their touches blending together in a seamless rhythm, pushing me further than I thought possible. It was a whirlwind of sensation, and I found myself getting lost in the heat of it all, my body responding to their every move. Sarah's hands moved lower, and I could feel the intensity building between us, my mind barely able to keep up with what was happening. Emma's lips were on my chest now, kissing her way down as Sarah's fingers dug deeper into my hips, guiding me closer to the edge. I was teetering on the brink, completely caught up in the moment, and I could feel myself letting go, surrendering to the heat and intensity of it all. "Jake," Sarah whispered, her breath hot against my skin. "We're not even close to finished with you." Her words sent a thrill through me, and I could feel my pulse quicken. There was something incredibly powerful about the way they moved together, their touches complementing each other perfectly, pushing me closer and closer to the edge. The heat between us was unbearable now, and I knew that I was on the verge of losing myself entirely to the moment. Emma's hands moved in time with Sarah's, their touches blending together seamlessly, and I could feel the tension in my body build to an almost unbearable point. My breath came in short, ragged gasps, and my body ached for release, but they weren't letting me off that easily. They took their time, drawing out the moment, teasing me with their touches, making me want more. Sarah leaned down again, her lips grazing my ear as she whispered, "You're ours tonight, Jake. We're going to make sure you never forget this." Her words were both a promise and a threat, and I could feel the weight of them settle over me. I was completely at their mercy, and I knew it. There was no escape from the intensity of their touch, no way to stop the overwhelming sensation that was threatening to tear me apart. And, truth be told, I didn't want to. Emma's hands moved with purpose now, her fingers trailing over my skin in a way that made my entire body shudder. I could feel myself slipping further into the haze of desire that had taken over the room. There was no room for anything else, no thoughts, no doubts. Just the heat, the intensity, and the feeling of being completely consumed by them. Sarah kissed me again, her hands roaming over my body, and I could feel the tension in the air thickening. They were driving me wild, every touch pushing me closer to the brink, but always pulling back just before I reached it. It was maddening, exhilarating, and I couldn't get enough. Emma leaned down, her breath hot against my skin as she whispered, "You're close, aren't you?" I nodded, barely able to find my voice. My body was on fire, every nerve screaming for release, but they weren't letting me have it. Not yet. Sarah's hands moved lower, teasing me just enough to make me gasp, while Emma kissed her way back up my chest, her lips soft and warm against my skin. The two of them were working together seamlessly, their touches perfectly in sync, and I could feel the tension building to a breaking point. My mind was spinning, my heart racing, and I knew that I was about to lose control entirely. There was no holding back now. I was completely at their mercy, and they knew it. "Just let go, Jake," Sarah whispered, her voice soft and commanding. "Let us take care of you." And with those words, everything fell apart. Everything seemed to come crashing down at once. Sarah's words were like a trigger, and I felt myself completely give in to the moment. My body tensed, every nerve on fire as the intensity of their touch became too much to bear. Emma's lips were on mine again, soft yet urgent, while Sarah's hands moved with purpose, driving me to the brink and beyond. The release was overwhelming, a tidal wave of sensation that left me breathless. My entire body shuddered as I surrendered to the moment, caught up in the heat of their combined touch. The tension that had been building between us for what felt like hours finally reached its breaking point, and the intensity of it all left me dizzy, gasping for air. For a few moments, there was nothing but the sound of our heavy breathing filling the room, the three of us tangled together in a mess of limbs and heat. Emma lay beside me, her fingers gently tracing patterns on my chest, while Sarah rested her head on my shoulder, her breath warm against my neck. We were all spent, our bodies humming with the aftershocks of what had just happened. The room felt different now, calmer, more grounded. The fiery intensity that had filled the air had cooled, leaving behind a sense of quiet contentment. I glanced over at Emma, who smiled softly at me, her eyes filled with warmth. Sarah lifted her head, meeting my gaze with a satisfied grin. "That was something," Sarah said, her voice low and filled with a mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. I could only nod, still catching my breath. My mind was spinning, trying to process everything that had just happened. It had been intense, surreal, and completely unexpected, but there was no denying the sense of connection that had grown between us in the process. It was more than just the physical. It was something deeper, something that had shifted in all of us. Emma stretched lazily beside me, her fingers brushing against my hand as she spoke. "We should probably talk about this," she said softly, her voice serious but gentle. Sarah nodded, propping herself up on one elbow to look at both of us. "Yeah, I think we should. That was intense, and I don't want things to get weird between us." I swallowed, feeling a knot form in my stomach. The last thing I wanted was for this to ruin the relationship we had. Yeah, we should talk, I agreed, my voice steady but soft. I don't want this to change things between us in a bad way. Emma smiled, her eyes full of reassurance. It doesn't have to, she said, her voice calm. We can decide what this means for us. It doesn't have to be a one-time thing, or it can be whatever feels right. Sarah looked thoughtful for a moment before nodding in agreement. Exactly. We've got to be on the same page. I think we can all agree that tonight was incredible, but it's important that we understand where we all stand moving forward. The conversation that followed was surprisingly easy, considering what had just happened. We talked openly, honestly, about what this meant for us. There was no awkwardness, just a shared understanding that we had experienced something powerful together, and that it had changed the dynamic between us in a way that we couldn't ignore. It was clear that while tonight had been a wild, unforgettable experience, it wasn't something any of us wanted to rush into repeating. We all agreed that this was something special, something unique, and we wanted to make sure that we moved forward with care and respect for each other. By the time the conversation wound down, the tension from earlier had completely dissipated, replaced by a feeling of mutual understanding. Emma and Sarah had both been clear about their boundaries, and we had set our expectations moving forward. It wasn't something we were going to turn into a regular thing. It was a moment we would cherish, but it didn't define our relationships. As the first rays of morning light began to filter through the curtains, I lay there between Emma and Sarah, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. What had happened tonight had been intense, yes, but it had also been a bonding experience, something that had deepened our connections with each other in ways I hadn't anticipated. Emma rested her head on my chest, her fingers gently playing with mine, while Sarah snuggled closer, her breath soft and steady against my shoulder. The room was quiet, the energy between us calm and content. We were all comfortable with what had happened, and that comfort allowed us to drift into a peaceful silence. As I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of their bodies next to mine, I realized that tonight had been more than just an exploration of desire. It had been about trust, communication, and connection. We had crossed a line, yes, but in doing so, we had created something deeper, something that would stay with us for a long time. The future felt open, filled with possibilities I hadn't considered before. And as I drifted off to sleep, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together, with the same openness and honesty that had brought us to this point.